Hello and welcome to Library Connection. I'm Mandi Cantrell from the B.B. Comer Memorial Library in Sylacauga, Alabama. I've got 3 unique stories today I want to share with you. The first one is The Bravest Woman in America. This is a biography by Marissa Moss. Ida loved the sea. She loved it when it was calm and coppery in the sunlight. She loved it when it was wild with froth, like a herd of stampeding horses. She loved the crash of the waves, the screech of gulls wheeling overhead, and the bite of salt in her nose as she breathed in the ocean air. So when her father got a job as a lighthouse keeper, she felt like the luckiest girl in the world. Twice a day, Pa had to row out to check on the light perched on Lime Rock, the small rocky island poking out of Newport Harbor. Young Ida begged to go with him. Pa laughed and handed her the oars. "You pull your weight and you can come." The oars were heavy and awkward, but Ida was stubborn. She pushed and pulled until the boat lurched forward. It was slow. It was hard. Her shoulders ached and her hands blistered. But when the front of the boat bumped up against the small beach of Lime Rock, Ida felt a bubble of triumph lift her up. She'd made it. From that day on, Ida rowed with Pa as often as she could. He told her stories about storms and drowning sailors, sinking boats, and rescues. He taught her how to check on the light, how to fill it with oil, trim the wick, and clean the lens. Most of all, he taught her to row. Over the years, Ida grew strong and lean. Now when she gripped the oars, the boat glided smoothly through the water. If the wind was wild, she knew how to lean into it. If the waves were high, she knew how to stay calm and let the sea break over her. The oars were part of her now, and her strokes were sure and steady. When Ida turned 15, she got the best birthday present she could have hoped for. The Lighthouse Board had decided that Lime Rock needed a keeper to live there at all times. There had been too many shipwrecks, too many lost boats. A full-time keeper would make the harbor safer. So a house was built with a tower holding the light. It was a real official lighthouse, and Ida and her family would be the first to live there. Ida loved watching the sea for any sign of trouble. She loved polishing the lighthouse lens so the light would shine bright. She loved rowing her 2 younger brothers and her sister to school and back home every day. "You're a real lighthouse keeper now," her sister told her. "I think you're the bravest girl in America," her youngest brother said. "And you're definitely the best rower ever," her older brother boasted. Ida shook her head. "No, not yet, but someday I will be." That day came sooner than Ida wanted. Pa got sick. He grew weaker and weaker every day until he was no longer able to care for the lighthouse. While Pa sat at the window watching the sea, a blanket wrapped around him, Ida and her mother kept the light full and strong, beaming over the water. Ida was ready for the job. Like her father, she had kept watch over the harbor, scanning the waves for any ship in trouble. Ida had never seen her father rescue anyone, but he had told her how to haul people over the stern so they didn't tip her boat. He had described how to lift a man out of the water, how to warm him in blankets afterwards so the chill didn't kill him. Ida felt ready for anything. One winter evening, Ida spotted a small boat bobbing wildly in the harbor, tipping back and forth as a boy shinnied up the mast. The sun was setting, and Ida's first thought was that the boy was trying to get a better view of where to head. Then she heard laughter carried on the wind. 3 other boys on the boat waved their arms at each other, whooping loudly. It was just a game, a bit of fun, but to Ida it looked dangerous. She watched as the boat pitched over, throwing all 4 boys into the sea. Then she didn't watch anymore. She ran to her own small boat and rowed out to the boys. It was darker now, the waves wilder, but she could hear yelling, and through the mist she could make out the upturned keel of the boat. The boys tried to cling to its slippery sides, but there was nothing to grip. Their legs churned the water in panic. Their clothes weighed them down in the slapping waves, and the icy cold of the water made them gasp for breath. Ida reached the first boy and grabbed him, just as her father had told her. She pulled him into the boat, then quickly rowed around to reach the next boy who was thrashing and spitting water. She hauled him in too, then the next one, and then the next. The boys' faces were white with cold, their lips blue. One passed out, lying limp on the bottom of the boat. Ida didn't think. She rowed harder and faster than she ever had. The waves crashed over her head, tilting the boat along a wall of green and gray. Ida kept on rowing, frantic to get them all to safety. I can do it, she told herself. I have to do it. When she pulled the boat onto the beach at Lime Rock, she threw down the oars and looked up, exhausted, into her mother's proud face. Well done, Ida. Let's get these boys into the house, said Mrs. Lewis. They need to get warm and dry. Once the boys had recovered and the seas had calmed, Ida rowed them back to town. Then she set her boat back toward the lighthouse. Each stroke of her oars brought her closer to her home, closer to where she belonged. When she got there, her father was waiting. He didn't say anything, just hugged her hard. Then he handed her his captain's hat. Ida was in charge of the lighthouse now, and she knew it. All right, this is a great story, I think. Ida was 63 when she made her last rescue. Officially, she saved 18 lives, but the real number may be as high as 25. It says here, at a time when women couldn't vote and someone like Susan B. Anthony could ask, are women persons? Ida proved that a woman could be as brave as a man. Anyone who thinks it is unfeminine to save lives has the brain of a donkey, she said in an interview. She lived with her eye on the guiding beam of the lighthouse and the sea around it until her death at 1911 at the age of 69. I think she's a wonderful, wonderful person, a very brave young woman. So thank you, and we'll pause for a commercial break, and I hope you'll join me for the next book when we get back.
While you're at home with family for the next few weeks, don't put off scheduling home repairs. Call Ox Foundation for a free estimate. With more time at home, you tend to notice things you haven't in the past. Mold and moisture in your basement or crawl space, uneven driveways, stair-step cracks in your exterior brick, uneven floors and doors. If your home is showing weakness, it's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Stay strong, Alabama.
A funeral service represents a family's final farewell to their loved ones. Knowing this, we go beyond what is expected to ensure the ceremony is beautiful and memorable, a truly fitting tribute to that special life. We invite you to visit us to meet our staff and tour our renovated facility complete with a new dining area and catering services. We've been serving the people of this area for over 40 years, and we think that you'll be pleased to find that making lasting impressions remains our first priority. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.
We're facing unprecedented times, and prayer and positive thought are antidotes for our anxiety. Please continue your prayers for our medical profession, our leaders, our first responders, and those afflicted with this virus. My name is Mark Ledbetter, president of the Coosa Valley Ministerial Association, and I encourage you to reach out to local pastors for any spiritual or emotional needs. God will see us through these trying times.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
welcome back. I've got another unique story. It's about a little girl who was actually mailed to her grandmother. The book is Mailing May by Michael O'Tunnell. It all started when Ma and Pa promised I could stay a spell with Grandma Mary, who lived 1,000,000 miles away through the rough old Idaho mountains. But when I asked Ma if it was time to go, she just shook her head and sighed real deep. So I tried asking Pa. No money, said Pa. Train ticket cost $1.55, May. I work all day to make that much. Maybe next year. But I just couldn't wait a whole year, so the next morning when Ma bundled me in my heavy winter coat and sent me out to play in the snow, I made a beeline for Alexander's department store. Mr. Alexander called his hello from atop a ladder. I need a job, I said. I need money for the train. Mr. Alexander smiled as he stepped down to the floor. A job, is it? I wish I could hire you, May, but all the jobs around here are grown-up jobs, like counting money and lifting heavy cartons. I must have looked mighty sad because Mr. Alexander reached for a jar of peppermint sticks. The sweet wintry taste didn't do much to cheer me as I slogged my way home. Things only got worse when Pa came back from work that night. He and Ma commenced whispering and peeking at me off and on. Then they made me go to bed awfully early, which I did not like at all. Next morning, Ma shook me awake while it was still real dark. I was puzzled to see Pa's little traveling bag packed and standing by the door. When I asked where he was going, Ma only smiled and said, "Eat your breakfast." Just then someone knocked on our front door. Pa opened up to Ma's cousin Leonard. "Come along, May," Pa said, grabbing the suitcase as Ma helped me with my coat. "We're going to the post office with Leonard." He held up his hand as I opened my mouth. "No questions," Pa said with a wink. Ma hugged and kissed me before Pa took my hand and led me out into the dark winter air. Before long, I stood taking in the funny smells of the Grangeville post office, glue and canvas bags and old wooden floors. Meanwhile, Pa marched right up to Postmaster Perkins and said, "Sam, you got some new rules for mailing packages. I know boxes can weigh up to 50 pounds nowadays, but what sorts of things can you send?" Mr. Perkins looked at Pa real strange-like as he asked, "What you got in mind, John?" "It's May," said Pa. "We'd like to mail her to Lewiston. Leonard here mans the mail car on the train, as you well know. He can take good care of our package." "Sure thing, Sam," said Leonard. I was flat flabbergasted by Pa, and so was Mr. Perkins. "Mailing May," he mumbled, shaking his head. "Let's see. The postal code says not to mail lizards or insects or anything smelly." Mr. Perkins looked at me over his glasses and then sniffed. "Guess you passed the smell test." "But what about girls?" I asked. "Can you mail me?" "Well, the rule book says nothing about children, but it is permissible to mail baby chicks." Mr. Perkins smiled. "Let's find out exactly how much you and your valise weigh." I scrambled up onto the big scale and Pa set his traveling bag next to me. 48 pounds and 8 ounces. Biggest baby chick on record. Mr. Perkins ran his finger down a chart hanging near the scale and turned to Pa. "To mail May from Grangeville to Lewiston will cost 53 cents. "Well, Leonard, looks like you'll be in charge of some poultry on the mail run." Before I knew it, Mr. Perkins had glued 53 cents worth of stamps on the back of my coat, along with a label. Pa hugged me and told me to be good to Grandma Mary. Then he was gone, and there I was, a package sitting in the post office. Before long, Leonard carted me and the rest of the mail to the train station. The big black steam engine was already waiting, hissing and snorting like a boar hog. The sight made me go all tingly, seeing as I'd never ridden on a train before. After Leonard loaded the mail bags and a few other packages, he called out, "Time to go, May." Then he helped me up the steel steps. At exactly 7 o'clock, the train chugged away from my home and headed down the mountain. I felt as adventuresome as Daniel Boone. The inside of the mail car was like a little post office, and Leonard got busy right away sorting mail to be dropped off at towns along the way. I curled up nearby the stove to keep warm and watched. Whenever Leonard had a free minute, he'd take me to the door for a look. My, oh my, what sights there were to see. While we hung on the edge of mountainsides and crawled through tunnels, we crossed deep valleys on top of tall, spidery trestles that Leonard called steel on stilts. Then along about Lapway Canyon, where the train track twists back and forth down the mountain, I began to feel somewhat less adventuresome. Instead, I was feeling dizzy and weak in the stomach. I was about to run to get some fresh air when I heard an angry voice at the door. "Leonard," yelled a man in uniform, "that girl better have a ticket or money to buy one." It was Mr. Harry Morris, the train's conductor. I hid behind Leonard as he explained that I was a package, not a passenger. Then he showed Mr. Morris the stamps on my coat. The cranky old conductor slapped his knee and laughed out loud. "I've seen everything now," said Mr. Morris, wiping his eyes. Well, Mr. Morris plumb scared the dizziness right out of me. Even my stomach seemed better, and I started feeling hungry. Leonard said lunch would be at Grandma Mary's. The train made a few more stops at towns like Sweetwater and Joseph before we pulled into the Lewiston Railroad station. Since this was the end of the line, Leonard had time to be my mail carrier, and we headed for Grandma Mary's place. The second I laid eyes on Grandma Mary, I felt downright warm inside. Ma and Pa had kept their promise after all, with a little help from the U.S. Post Office. I hope you enjoyed this story, Mailing May by Michael O'Tunnell. I love to read the author's notes at the end. It says, this is a true story. On February 19th, 1914, 5-year-old Charlotte May Pierstoff actually was mailed from Grangeville to Lewiston, Idaho. Though I fictionalized May's story, the basic historical facts are accurate. And thanks to Leonard Mochel, whose 2-page personal account of this story, a clear voice out of the past, solved a number of mysteries for the author. He says, I only regret that I missed talking to May herself because she died in 1987. Thank you for joining me. We'll pause for a commercial break and be right back.
A funeral service represents a family's final farewell to their loved ones. Knowing this, we go beyond what is expected to ensure the ceremony is beautiful and memorable, a truly fitting tribute to that special life. We invite you to visit us to meet our staff and tour our renovated facility complete with a new dining area and catering services. We've been serving the people of this area for over 40 years, and we think that you'll be pleased to find that making lasting impressions remains our first priority. Curtis & Son Funeral Home, Sylacauga, Childersburg.
WOTM is the television provider for all Alabama High School Athletic Association championship events and special programs. WOTM is your home for the Super 7 football, state finals basketball, baseball and softball state championships, the AHSAA weekly show, and WOTM also produced the first ever football playoff show, Super 7 preview show, and reclassification reveal show. Your exclusive home for all things AHSAA is WOTM. Contact your local cable provider to request WOTM to your channel lineup.
Things a little bumpy in your driveway? Ox Foundation Solutions has the expertise and the know-how to repair cracks, wet basements and crawl spaces, and uneven floors in your home. Ox Foundation Solutions will come up with the right fix for you. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
All right, thank you for coming back with me. Here's another interesting story by the author Marissa Moss. This is Mighty Jackie, the Strikeout Queen. It's for all you baseball fans out there. It was April 2nd, 1931, and something amazing was about to happen. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, two teams were about to play an exhibition game of baseball. One was the New York Yankees, a legendary team with famous players Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, and Tony Lazzeri. The other was the Chattanooga Lookouts, a small team, a nothing team, except for the pitcher, Jackie Mitchell. Jackie was young, only 17 years old, but that's not what made people sit up and take notice. Jackie was a girl, and everyone knew that girls didn't play Major League Baseball. The New York Daily News sneered that she would swing a mean lipstick instead of a bat. A reporter wrote that you might as well have a trained seal behind the plate as have a woman standing there. But Jackie was no trained seal. She was a pitcher and a mighty good one. The question was she good enough to play against the New York Yankees? As long as she could remember, Jackie had played ball with her father. She knew girls weren't supposed to. All the kids at school, all the boys in her neighborhood told her that. When one boy yelled at another one, "You throw like a girl," it was an insult. Everyone knew girls couldn't throw, or that's what they thought. Day after day in the neighborhood sandlot, Jackie's father told her differently. He said she could throw balls, and she did. She ran bases, she swung the bat. By the time she was 8 years old, Dazzy Vance, the star pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers, had taught her how to pitch. A real pitcher talking to a little girl was all Jackie needed to start dreaming of playing in the World Series. Her father saw her talent, and so did Dazzy. He told her she could be good at whatever she wanted, as long as she worked at it. And Jackie worked at baseball. She worked hard. She practiced pitching till it was too cold and dark to stay outside. She threw balls until her shoulder ached and her fingers were calloused. She pitched until her eyes blurred over and she couldn't see where she was throwing. But it didn't matter. Her arm knew. And now she was finally going to have her chance to play on a real baseball team, to pitch to real players. The stands were packed. A crowd of 4,000 had come to see the strange sight of a woman on the pitcher's mound. She stood tall on the field and looked back at the crowd in the bleachers. They were waiting for her to make a mistake, and she knew it. They were waiting for her to prove that baseball was a man's game, not her game. "It is my game," she muttered to herself and bit her lip. The Yankees were up, top of the first, and the batter was walking up to the plate. Jackie was ready for him, the ball tight in her left hand. Except the batter was Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth, the home run king, a big mountain of a man. And Babe didn't like the idea of a woman pitcher at all. He thought women were too delicate for baseball. "They'll never make good," he said. "It would kill them to play ball every day." He walked to the plate and tipped his cap at Jackie. But if she thought he was going to go easy on her, she could forget it. He gripped the bat and got ready to slam the ball out of the ballpark. Jackie held that ball like it was part of her arm, and when she threw it, she knew exactly where it would go. Right over the plate, right where the Babe wasn't expecting it, right where he watched it speed by and thunk into the catcher's mitt. Strike one. Babe Ruth gaped. He couldn't believe it. The crowd roared. Jackie tried to block them out, to see only the ball, to feel only the ball. But Babe Ruth was facing her down now, determined not to let a girl make a fool out of him. She flinched right before the next pitch, and the umpire called a ball. "Huh," the Babe snorted. "You can do it," Jackie told herself. "Girls can throw. Show them." But the next pitch was another ball. Now the crowd was hooting and jeering. The Babe was snickering with them. Jackie closed her eyes. She felt her fingers tingling around the ball. She felt its heft in her palm. She felt the force of her shoulder muscles as she wound up for the pitch. She remembered what her father had told her. Go out there and pitch just like you pitch to anyone else. Strike two. Now the babe was mad. This was serious. The babe was striking out, and the pitcher was a girl. Jackie wasn't mad, but she wasn't scared either. She was pitching, really pitching, and it felt like something was happening the way it had always meant to be. She knew the batter would expect the same pitch, close and high, even if the batter was Babe Ruth. So this time she threw the ball straight down the middle with all the speed she could put on it. Strike three. Babe Ruth glared at the umpire and threw the bat down in disgust. He told reporters that that would be the last time he'd bat against a woman. The crowd was stunned. A girl had struck out the Sultan of SWAT. It couldn't be. It was a mistake, a fluke. What would the paper say tomorrow? But wait, here came Lou Gehrig, the iron horse, up to the plate. He'd show her. She couldn't strike out him too. Lou Gehrig swung with a mighty grunt, but his bat hit nothing but air. Strike one. He looked stunned, then dug in his heels and glared at Jackie. Strike two. Jackie grinned. She was doing what she'd worked so hard and long to do, and nothing could stop her. She pitched the ball the way she knew best, a lefty pitch with a low dip in it. No one could touch a ball like that when it was thrown right. Strike three. The crowd, so ready to boo her before, rose with a roar, clapping and cheering like crazy. Back to back, Jackie had struck out two of baseball's best batters, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. She'd proven herself, and now the fans loved her for it. But Jackie didn't hear them. She was too proud and too happy. She had done what she'd always known she could do. She'd shown the world how a girl could throw, as hard and as fast and as far as she wanted. I love this story, and there you should be seeing a picture of the real Jackie Mitchell with Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. She did strike them out. I don't believe she played anymore and kind of gave up her dream of playing in the World Series, but she did, and is always known as the girl who struck out Babe Ruth. Well, I hope you'll join us at the library. We are open. Our hours have changed just a little bit. We're opening at 9 every morning, closing Monday through Thursday at 5:30, Friday at 4:30, and Saturday at 2:30. So I sure hope you'll join us and come see us. Thank you for joining me on Library Connection, and hope to see you at the library soon.